We were sitting there fishing, and I heard a noise and turned around and looked and seen some blue lights, some hazy blue lights. And that's when, the craft landed behind us. We still wasn't for sure what it was. But it landed, and we turned around, and the front of it opened up. And when it did, it was just like we were paralyzed there. He couldn't move, and I couldn't move. But there's three robot-looking creatures that floated out. They didn't walk, they just kind of glided out of the craft and come over, and two got a hold of me and one got a hold of Charlie, and they took us inside. They did an examination, so when they examined us, we was probably in there, I'm going to say 45 minutes. I'm not real sure. I didn't have a watch or nothing at the time. They put us back out at the same place we were, facing the water, and I was froze, in one spot. And originally I didn't want to talk about it no more, so Charlie just said, play like you passed out in there and you won't have to say nothing too much. So that's what I did. I kind of went along with that. When it took off, it didn't make hardly any noise at all. You just heard like a zipping noise. It was zip, and that was it, and it was gone. And it shattered the windows in my car. I had a brand new 1973 Horner Rambler.
Took them down there and put them in a room with a voice-activated mic, and it's hidden in the desk to see what they'd say. Well, me and the other investigator got up and left to let them talk to see if they were going to say, well, we got them fooled and all. They didn't. They were really concerned. The boy kept telling Charles that don't talk to them, and people's going to come back and get us.
I did go on a few talk shows at the beginning of this, thinking that it would settle down after that. There's people, even up till today, that's still trying to track me down.
The year 1973, the nation's president, Richard Hickson. The rock group The Beatles had now broken up. It was also a year outer space met planet Earth.
I know all kinds of people who claim to have seen them. Some of them are very legitimate, and some of them I think are just having fun.
Unidentified flying objects, or UFO sightings, reached a record number that year, being called in from Key West to Seattle. All sightings were listened to, but most were disregarded as a hoax or an explainable happening. But two Pascagoula shipyard workers in October of that year managed to grab and hold on to the nation's attention in an incident that would come to be known as the Pascagoula UFO incident. Steve Dickerson was one of the reporters covering the story, which began near the East Pascagoula Bridge.
They were sitting on the bank fishing, okay, and they worked together, and one of them was older than the other, and the other boy was kind of like a son to him, and they're sitting there drinking a couple of beers and fishing one evening in Pascagoula, and all of a sudden they heard this funny noise, and then this light was around them.
And they said that the craft kind of hovered over a while, and then it more or less almost landed, and these strange creatures just sort of floated out.
And took them inside the spaceship. And then they believed that they were apparently examined.
Under some type of eye or light.
And then the next thing he knew, he was back outside again. And he doesn't have any idea how long it was that he was inside, because time was pretty much suspended.
Directly after the alleged happening, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker drove to the Mississippi Press newsroom to share their story with a reporter. There they met housekeepers and sisters-in-law Catherine and Dorothy Smith.
So we told them that they couldn't come in here. They had to go to the police station and tell them. And he just kept asking us would we let him in, And he didn't seem like he had seen nothing, because he seemed calm. He didn't seem frightened. Because if I'd have seen something, I bet the same expression what he had on his face wouldn't have been on mine.
I think they'd had a drink. That's just what I think about them.
The pair did go to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Fred Diamond was the county sheriff at the time.
We questioned them at length, and then we left the room and recorded all the conversation they had.
The hidden tape recorder was planted in the room basically to see if the two were making up the whole story. That after being questioned separately and both of their stories matching. This recording actually became one of the most powerful pieces of evidence that later made this one of the most credible UFO sightings ever.
This is, I like had a heart attack now. I come one down me too. I'm scared me to death too, so Jesus Christ. What's so damn bad about it, didn't nobody believe it. That's what I thought. I had been through enough of hell on this earth, and now I gotta go through something like this. See?
After being questioned by police, the two men underwent a battery of tests by experts in every field, from radiology to psychoanalysis to hypnosis. Pascagoula's Julius Bosco was one of the first physicians to examine the men.
I remember meeting them was fairly early Saturday morning, about 8 or 8:30, before really the news media or anyone else had gotten to them. I was a casual visitor visiting Mr. Walker, who owned the shipyard and who was their employer. I was fascinated with what they said, and I found it difficult to accept everything that was said. However, I believe that they were sincere. I do not believe that either of them at that time was putting on.
Whether or not anyone believed the story, most experts said they believed that the men believed. And once the local and national press captured this story, the small fishing trip had landed a media trophy.
UFOs first soared into the news in this country.
It was unbelievable. It's hard to believe that there could be that much reaction in such a short period of time. And it was a total mix of reaction from, I don't believe this for nothing, you know this is bogus, these guys have got to be crazy, to it's neat, we really have been contacted, isn't this terrific and exciting, to we're having a party at the house tonight with shotguns on the front porch, and if those suckers land here, we're going to shoot them.
Even the government was not immune. That year, the Ocean Springs City Council introduced a resolution making UFO landings within city limits illegal. Meanwhile, Charlie Hickson was becoming an overnight celebrity, appearing on national talk shows and in a UFO movie. The public responded with tens of thousands of letters that still arrive daily. Even the ones addressed to Charlie Hickson, the man who had the flying saucer experience in 1973, still make it to Hickson's Gaucher home. But while Charlie Hickson showered in the spotlight, his fishing buddy, Calvin Parker, went into seclusion, moving out of state. Some say to be treated for severe mental stress. Hickson says he too, along with his family, suffered greatly from the incident. He decided to make this experience pay him back.
You can now get your copy of their own personal story.
Hickson co-authored a book detailing the events of his story, and he appears regularly on a cable talk show in Pascagoula with his recently reunited buddy Calvin Parker, who has come out of seclusion talking. The two have big plans for the future.
We could see it as a vehicle. As a matter of fact, we've had so much response to it that we've had some independent television stations already contacts about the possibility of putting together a syndicated series.
Promoters are hoping new evidence from the past will help pave their future. Hickson says he has had several additional encounters since the original event and is almost ready to tell the world about them, all of which are connected to that one fishing trip back in October of 1973. Today, the site of the alleged happening looks a bit different. A new company has bought the property. Many years have passed. But this story still remains very much alive through local folklore and through the two individuals who are the only ones alive who can say whether this incident really happened. I'm Mark Mullen reporting for In Depth.
Almost since the beginning of time, man has wondered what secrets lie beyond the stars. One Gaucher man believes we are not alone.
It has to be a world out there somewhere. I don't know who it is. It has to be a world out there somewhere that they come from.
Regardless of where they come from, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker say they met them here on the Pascagoula River.
We were sitting there fishing, and I heard some type of hissing sound. And when I looked around, it was something that had come down behind Calvin and me, some kind of big craft. A door just appeared there like a sliding door. And two of them took hold of me by the shoulders, and one took hold of Calvin, and I saw Calvin go limp.
Once inside the craft, Hickson remembers being examined by an oblong-shaped instrument that hovered around him. He was completely paralyzed. Only his eyes could move. Hickson doesn't know how long he was there, but the unknown creatures released him sometime later, physically unharmed.
They carried me back out there and put me on the ground about where they'd pick me up from. And I heard a zipping sound again, and I looked around, and that craft was gone just like that.
Later that same evening, both Hickson and Parker told their unbelievable story to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department.
Didn't know it at that time, but they had a tape playing there. And after they listened to the after they brought us out of that room and listened to that tape, then they decided something had happened to us.
Until now, that tape has never been aired on television. The tape shows just how scared the two men were just hours after being allegedly abducted.
I had a heart attack and I ain't I come one down me too. That scared me to death too, something. I'm just laying there crying right now and I can't help myself. I'm telling you, man, I couldn't take much more than that. I tell you, I go get to bed or get some nerve pills or something, see the doctor or something. I can't stand it. I'm about to go all crazy.
Listen to Charles's original description of the craft's lighting compared to his description 27 years later.
And a blue light, you look in the sky and see a blue light, you know, it calls your attention to it. You couldn't tell, so it was just circling.
It was either flashing or pulsating, I don't know which it was, but it was bluish.
Charles's son Eddie admits at first he couldn't believe his father's story either. Eddie says he became a believer after hearing his father tell the exact same story time and time again.
Daddy's taken numerous polygraphs, been under hypnosis, and I understand it's almost impossible to lie under hypnosis, and it's never changed.
Since the alien contact, Hickson has published a book at his own expense and still lives modestly in Goche. Calvin Parker hasn't spoken publicly about the event in years. Hickson says he understands why people have trouble believing his story, but he firmly believes the truth about alien existence will be revealed one day in the near future.